now in the post-lunch session. No, I think you're speaking, sir. I believe that Senator Boyce might have indicated a willingness earlier to speak, but he's not now in his seat.
Senator Boyce. This Boyce. There's a Boyce there too.
Maybe Rudy Grant.
Right, oh, right.
You are? Yes, Senator Grant, yes.
Mr. President, I'm not going to detain the chamber with these remarks with respect to the bills that are before this honorable chamber. I simply wanted to add, sir, my voice in support of this legislation, recognizing how very important it is for Barbados to ensure that we take the necessary actions where we will be able to safeguard the business that we have and to also ensure that we are properly adhering to those rules and regulations that we have signed on to. You know, sir, I think that we have to look at these bills in the correct context. That context being that these bills are not simply being amended and being facilitated simply on their own, but they all fit in to a general objective of the government to ensure that Barbados is compliant and to ensure, sir, that we are engaging in the appropriate way in business. Of course, sir, many of us know that there are persons who have unexplained wealth. And we have to be very careful that we do not send the wrong message that people believe that crime does in fact pay. And sir, when persons are allowed to benefit through corrupt business activities or benefit financially through money laundering, that does give a signal, sir, that crime does in fact pay. Sir, I believe that these types of amendments allow us as well to safeguard the financial institutions that we have to work with here in Barbados. We have to be very conscious of the fact, Mr. President, that it is not simply about what is taking place in our jurisdiction, but we have to be very conscious that we function and operate in a global environment. And we have to ensure that we are able to meet the standards that have been set and the standards, sir, that we have signed on to. I must tell you, sir, that I was a little amazed by some of the comments coming from Senator Franklin. And, you know, sir, when I heard the contribution from Senator Holder, it made me reflect on a bit of law. And Senator Franklin constantly reminds us that he is knowledgeable in law. And sir, as you know, there's an aspect of law known as the law of equity. And in the law of equity, there are certain maxims. And one of the maxims, sir, I remembered when Senator Holder was speaking, was that which says, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. And sir, you cannot come into this chamber and give the impression in relation to one entity in the manner in which that entity you claim is functioning, but then in relation to others that you yourself may be associated with, you function differently. And sir, I would want to remind Senator Franklin that he should go and look at the maxims again. Mr. President, it also reminded me of a quotation I once heard of a blind man going into a dark room looking for a black cat that was not there. And essentially, from Senator Franklin's presentation, he seems, sir, not to be prepared. He seems, sir, not in any way to have any major contribution to make to this debate. And I have to say, sir, that I would not be surprised at all if when it came to voting, Senator Franklin actually voted for the bills, because he said nothing that was substantial or anything that demonstrated that he had a fundamental opposition to what was being proposed. I believe, sir, that these amendments as well provide for the opportunity for investor confidence, because those who are seeking, sir, to invest in Barbados, and I'm very aware that government has facilitated 2 investment conferences or 2 investment meetings, both with local investors and foreign investors. And the reality is that if we are going to be able to transform the economy, and if we are going to be able to ensure that we have continued growth and sustainable development, part of that, sir, is going to be driven by investment. And investors coming into Barbados would want to be certain that Barbados continues to be a good and reputable environment and destination, sir, in which they can do business. So, Mr. President, I am very happy to support these bills, as I believe that they continue to chart Barbados on the right course and take us along the correct path, whereby we can all be happy with the benefits that will resound, and happy, sir, at the end of the day with the continued growth that we would see in the economy, because we want to ensure that all Barbadians benefit. And in the same way, sir, in the same way that a fellow who may go into a supermarket and take up a tin of corned beef, or take up a tin of sardine, has to face the courts for committing a crime. In the same manner, Mr. President, sir, those who engage in white-collar crime, they have to recognize as well that they must pay. So, sir, with those very few words on this occasion, I give my support to these bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Grant. I next recognize Senator Lisa Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. President. It was not my intention to rise on this matter today, Mr. President, and I did not indicate until a short while ago that I was going to speak. But Mr. President, I feel as though it would be very difficult for this side to allow this debate to go without treating to some of the issues. My colleagues have more than ably dealt with the merits of the item before us. My colleagues have ably covered the technical merits that have given rise to the item which is being discussed here today, Mr. President. And we are in no doubt, Mr. President, as a government, that, as was said earlier by one of my colleagues, that we are often in a position, and we have found ourselves, I believe Senator Drake said it earlier, we were here just a few months ago, I believe in December. We made a number of changes to our legislation in order to respond to the demands of the OECD at the time. We subsequently returned to this place again to treat to our response to the onslaught of the European Union and the blacklisting. And we are here today, as has been indicated by at the time, the then acting leader of government business, to deal with the implementation measures that have been brought on with the Financial Action Task Force. We are in a position, Mr. President, where In business, we ask a lot of times if companies are price takers or price setters. In our circumstance in Barbados, we are price takers. We are often responding to circumstances that are outside of our control. And the first part of my comment today, Mr. President, which will be quite brief, I assure you, deals with the question of us being those are our price takers. Mr. President, whether it is the EU, whether it is the OECD, and in this instance, putting measures in place to treat to the implementation of the FATF oversight measures, we are in all instances, price takers. We are at all times responding to certain measures that are beyond our control, and my colleagues have made reference to that, Mr. President. And we do so sometimes in a way that is not always timely, because those things even we don't have control over. We don't always have control over the time frames within which we have to protect Barbados's reputation, our investments, and our capacity to be able to do business with the rest of the world. And so we don't always have the luxury, Mr. President, of being able to say we are going to do certain things down the road. We sit in this chamber, Mr. President, and often we feel as though there's a certain degree, and I don't want to be disparate in my terminology, but we treat almost as though we have multiple personalities. We are either to stand still or we are to speed ahead. When it is our pet issue, we are to hurry up and go quickly. But in all other instances, we are to stand still in the face of a public that is demanding results. Mr. President, 5 days, we say, after the government was installed, we went into an agreement with an entity. Mr. President, we know, and in this country, we had a balloon payment that was coming due on the 1st of June. And some of the very people who are now lambasting this administration for entering into an agreement with a company called White Oak would be the first ones to have said, why did the government stand still and do nothing? Those would be the same persons, Mr. President. But we did something because we had no time within which to act. We inherited an administration that had pushed the cusp of an election down to the brink before we had a major financial decision to make. We made the decision, Mr. President, and we stand by that decision as an administration. In the interest of this country, we made that choice. It is easy when you don't have the accountability of a balloon payment, of a loan payment that would have drained our foreign reserves and we had 4 weeks exchange cover. It's easy to say, oh, you didn't do anything. Why did you do that? If you hadn't done it, there would have been a different argument. Mr. President, we as an administration have to govern. That's what we're here to do. And the notion that we use this place and every other space that we occupy to cast illegitimate aspersions on government and on everything that is government related. We understand the sensitivity of our people. Mr. President, we lived through this country in the last 10 years. We understand exactly how Barbadians feel. What we lived through, we never want to experience again, Mr. President. But the legislation that we're considering now speaks to a category of person called politically exposed. And I believe my colleague spoke earlier about how politicians are seen in the public space. Mr. President, we have a governance model that requires persons to offer themselves to step forward to govern. At this time last year, very few of us in this room had any notion that we would be standing here today. And as my colleague quite rightfully said, we are in some instances politically tainted in the eyes of some. But it requires good people who love this country to come forward, stand up and say, I will serve. And it serves none of us, neither us as an individual or us as a collective, and certainly not us as a nation, to use this space to denigrate everything that the government does because it reflects on the psyche of Barbadians who are already mistrustful of everything. We have to use this chamber judiciously. We have to use our platforms carefully and responsibly. And if we want this country to continue to have the bright people, the willing people, the sacrificial people who will step forward and say, I am willing to serve, we have to stop casting the kinds of aspersions in here that we have been doing on everything the government does. If we are wrong, Mr. President, castigate us. and we take that. When we have failed, say that. We will respond to that, and if it is legitimate, we will deal with that. But the notion that we use this space to oppose for opposing sake, to criticize for criticizing sake, and to drag for dragging sake does not help this country. Investment grade and investment ranking is not just about the indices. It is about our conversations. It is about the things we put out in the press. It is about those 30-second sound bites that are spread across the headlines that go all across the world, that people see. And in those 15 minutes and those 30 minutes that we stand behind these microphones and say all kinds of salacious things, we damage our own investor confidence, Mr. President. We draw attention to ourselves where there is no reason to so do. We say to others that politicians are corrupt. We say to others that politically exposed persons are inherently unethical. By the things we say, Mr. President, it has to stop. Mr. President, we have to do better. Mr. President, we will not be here indefinitely. There will be others who have to come behind us. And there are some extraordinary Barbadians who are looking and willing to stand up and say, I am here. And in the biblical terms, Senator Holder and Senator Rogers, you are the theologians. Me, I like the music of it. There's a song that says, if you can use anything, Lord, you can use me. Take my hands, Lord, and my feet. Touch my heart, Lord, speak through me. If you can use anything, Lord, you can use me. We want Barbadians to stand up and say, if you can use anything, you can use me. And I'm willing to serve. We have to change our conversations. When I see social media, when I see the commentary that is circulating, we have to change our conversations. We have to do better. Because if we don't, fewer and fewer good people will stand up and say, if you can use anything, use me. And so I support this legislation. I support the oversight. I support the transparency measures, and I support the implementation measures. But I say to this chamber, and I say to this nation, that aside from these legislative changes, we need to make some mindset changes. We need to make some heart changes. We need to make some conversation changes, because otherwise, we are going to stop people from coming into public life to serve. I say that, and I'm appealing to people in this house and outside. Be judicious, have oversight, be engaged, commit, ask questions. But this automatic dragging through the mud of every single thing where there is no basis has to stop, Mr. President. It does us no good, and it casts us in a light that is not our own. And so with those few words, Mr. President, I'm supportive of the legislative changes, I'm supportive of the amendments, I'm supportive of the overall oversight that we are going to be bringing to our legislative environment, but I'm also using the opportunity, Mr. President, to say that there are some things that legislation alone cannot do, and those things, Mr. President, must start with us. And with those few words, Mr. President, I'm obliged.
Senator Kay McConney. To wrap up this debate.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Before us are 5 pieces of legislation that are really critical to us being able to move forward, save our reputation, and restore good faith, good trust in the financial community internationally for Barbados. And from all that I have heard here today, it is clear to me that all of the senators here do support the proposed amendments. And I want, however, to thank Senator Drakes for pointing out so clearly where there could be greater specificity with regards to the data that we are collecting to ensure that there's no ambiguity, people are not misunderstanding what is expected of them, and that we are not giving them blank checks to write things where they will provide information to us that we really don't need, but that we can be clearer and more specific and be more efficient in collecting the relevant data. I want also to thank Senator Greenidge for his very lucid presentation. And he really made it, he rang it home to us that, you know what, we will be excluded from international business if we simply do not do what is required of us to do in this situation. He pointed out what's at stake for us in a significant way. Lynette Holder, Senator Holder, was very helpful in helping us to see where else, including with regards to nonprofits, that we could also seek to extend the opportunity for us to bring greater regulation that is inclusive to others. Senator Cummins, in a very impassioned and pointed and to the point speech, presentation, I should say, helped us to recognize that, look, the reality is that we may have to be price takers in this world. It is not always that we get to be the ones who determine how we play this game. And that we have to be able to respond to measures that are beyond our control. And that is just part of the world that we are in right now. And that when we make decisions, we ought not to back down and feel sorry simply because there are those there who are choosing to use this forum in a way that does not serve us all as Barbadians. And I want to thank Senator Grant for the perspective he shared about compliance and the fact that we need to understand that compliance is going to be a new part of the narrative of us as small island developing states. And I think all in all, we have had a very good debate. I thank all of the contributors at this point in time. And it is with these few words, Mr. President, that I would beg that these bills now be read a second time.
Question is that the measures, the bills under consideration be now read a second time. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. Go to committee.
Mr. President, I beg to move that Your Honor now leave this chair and the Senate resolves into a committee of the whole.
The question is that I do now leave the chair. The Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate for the further consideration of the measures before it in detail. All honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it, and we are now in the committee of the whole.
Senate is now in committee.
Clause 1.
This bill. Which bill? Which bill?
Order number 1, Mr. Then they will call the others.
The charges first?
Yes.
So you need this? You need this? Okay.
I beg to move that clause 1 stand part.
The question is that clause 1 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
I beg to move that clause 2 now stand part.
The question is that clause 2 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 3.
I beg to move that clause 3 stand part.
The question is that clause 3 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 4.
I beg to move that clause 4 stand part.
The question is that clause 4 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 5.
Beg to move that clause 5 stand part.
The question is that clause 5 stand par. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 6. I'm sorry, sir.
Schedule.
The schedule.
I beg to move that the schedule be the schedule to the bill.
The question is that the schedule be the schedule to the bill. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Report.
I beg to move that you now report the passing of one bill in committee and that it be cited as the,
Not yet.
to his honor.
The question is that I do not report His Honour, the President, the passing of one bill in committee. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
You'll get through all of them,
No, only one. Only Charlie.
right? Charlie will?
Only one, Charlie.
Yeah.
Chairman has reported
Yeah.
today.
The chairman has reported to me the passage of the one bill that was under consideration in committee. Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, you go ahead, you go ahead.
Move that we read now a third time.
Beg to move that the bill now be read a third time.
The question is that the bill before us be now read a third time. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. Move that do no pass?
No,
Huh?
Nigeria's coming.
Nigeria's coming.
Nigeria's coming.
I now move that the bill now pass and be cited as the Charities Amendment Act 2019.
The question is that the bill under consideration do now pass and be so cited. Honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The bill is passed and will be so cited.
This one. You want something?
The second one we're moving to now.
This one, companies.
Order number 2, sir. Order number 2, the name of the acting leader of the Senate to move the second reading of the Companies Amendment Bill 2019.
Beg to move that the bill now be read a second.
Question is that the company's amendment bill be now read a second time. Honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The bill has now been read a second time. Resolved is having the committee. I remove
I beg to
myself.
move that the Senate now, His Honor do now leave the chair and the Senate resolve itself to the Committee of the Whole considers.
The question is that I do now leave the chair and the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate for the further consideration of the company's amendment bill in detail. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We are now in the committee of the whole Senate.
The Senate is now in committee.
Clause 1,
Beg to move that clause 1 stand part.
The question is that clause 1 stand part. Honourable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Beg to move that clause 2 stand part.
The question is that clause 2 stand part. Honourable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 3,
Beg to move that clause 3 stand part.
The question is that clause 3 stand part. Honourable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 4,
Beg to move that clause 4 stand part.
The question is that clause 4 stand part. Honourable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 5,
Beg to move that clause 5 stand part.
The question is that clause 5 stand part. Honourable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 6,
I beg to move that clause 6 stand part.
The question is that clause 6 stand part. Honourable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Said 4.
I report his
I beg to move that you now report to His Honor the passing of one bill in committee.
The question is that I do now report his honor the president, the passing of one bill in committee. Honourable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported to me the passage of the bill under consideration in committee. Read a third time.
I now beg to move that the bill be read a third time.
The question is that the bill under consideration be now read a third time. All honourable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. Will be no pass. And be cited as.
Mr. President, I now beg that this bill be now passed and cited as the Companies Amendment Act 2019.
The question is that the bill under consideration will now pass, so be so cited. All honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The bill is now passed and will be so cited.
Order number 4, sir. In the name of the Honorable Leader of the Senate, to move the second reading of the Corporate and Trust Service Providers Amendment Bill 2019.
Beg to move that this bill be now read a second time.
The question is that the Corporate and Trust Services Amendment Bill be now read a second time. All honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
I beg to move that Your Honor now leave the chair and the Senate dissolve into committee of the whole to consider this matter.
The question is that I do now leave the chair and the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate for the further consideration of the bill before us in detail. All honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it, and we are now in the committee of the whole Senate.
The Senate is now in committee.
Clause 1,
I beg to move that clause 1 stand part.
The question is that clause 1 stand part. Honourable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2,
I I beg to move that clause 2 stand part.
Question is that clause 2 stand part. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 3.
I beg to move that clause 3 stand part.
The question is that clause 3 stand part. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 4.
I beg to move that clause 4 stand part.
The question is that clause 4 stand part. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Report.
I beg to move that you report the passing of one bill in committee to His Honor the President.
The question is that I do now report His Honour the President the passing of one bill in committee. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. All the papers gone.
One or too much loaded.
Carry some of that.
The chairman has reported to me the passes of the bill under consideration in committee.
I'll beg that this bill be read the third time.
The question is that the bill under consideration be now read a third time. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The bill has now been read a third time.
I beg to move that this bill now pass and be cited as the Corporate and Trust Service Providers Act 2019.
The question is that this bill be now passed and be cited as the Corporate and Trust Services Provided Amendment Act 2019. All honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. The ayes have it. And the bill is passed and will be so cited.
Order number 5, sir. In the name and order of the Leader of the Senate, to move the second reading of the Financial Services Commission Amendment Bill 2019.
I beg to move that this bill now be read a second time.
The question is that the bill under consideration, the Financial Services Commission Amendment Bill 2019, be now read a second time. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
I beg to move that His Honor now leave the chair and that the Senate, that this Honourable House dissolve into a committee of the whole to consider the details.
Question is that I do now leave the chair and the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate with further consideration of the measure before us in more detail. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. The Senate is now in committee of the whole.
The Senate is now in committee.
So Chairman, sir, may I take the bill in 2 parts?
Yes, 2 parts.
Clauses 1 to 9.
I beg to move that clauses 1 to 9 now stand part.
The question is that clauses 1 to 9 stand part. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clauses 10 to 18.
I beg to move that clauses 10 to 18 stand part.
The question is that clauses 10 to 18 stand part. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Report.
Ask that you report to His Honor the President the passing of one bill in committee.
The question is that I do now report His Honour the President passing of one bill in committee. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported to me the passage of the bill under consideration in committee.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill be now read a third time.
The question is that the bill under consideration, Financial Services Amendment Bill, be now read a third time. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. No pass.
President, I beg to move that this bill now pass and be cited as the Financial Services Commission Amendment Act 2019.
The question is that the bill under consideration do now pass and be cited as the Financial Services Amendment Act 2019. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The bill is now law and will be so cited.
Order number 6, sir. Order number 6, in the name of the Honourable Leader of the Senate, to move the second reading of the Money Laundering and Financing of Terrorism Prevention and Control Amendment Bill 2019.
I beg to move that this bill now be read a second time.
The question is that the bill under consideration, the Money Laundering and Financing of Terrorism Prevention and Control Amendment Bill 2019, be now read a second time. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. Read a third time.
I now beg to move that His Honor now leave the chair and the Senate dissolve in committee.
The question is that I do now leave the chair and the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate with further consideration of the matter before it in committee and in detail. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it, and the Senate is now in committee.
The Senate is now in committee.
With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'll take the bill in two parts.
Permission granted.
Clauses 1 to 5.
I beg to move that clauses 1 to 5 stand part.
The question is that clauses 1 to 5 stand part. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clauses 6 to 10.
I beg to move that clauses 6 to 10 stand part.
The question is that clauses 6 to 10 stand part. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Report.
I ask that you report the passing of one bill in committee to His Honor.
The question is that I do not report to His Honour the President the passing of one bill in committee. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chairman has reported to me the passage of the bill under consideration in committee.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill now be read a third time.
The question is that the bill under consideration be now read a third time. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. So be cited as.
Beg to move that this bill now pass and be cited as the Money Laundering and Financing of Terrorism Prevention and Control Amendment Act 2019.
The question is that the bill under consideration do now pass and be so cited. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The bill is now being passed and it will be so cited.
Order number 3, sir. In the name of the Honourable Acting Leader of the Senate, to move the passing of a resolution to approve the Proceeds of Crime Amendment Order 2019 made by the Attorney General under Section 65(1) of the Proceeds of Crime Act, Chapter 143, and that Her Excellency, the Governor General, be asked to accept and take the necessary steps to give effect to the resolution.
Thank you.
Mr. President, this is a resolution that relates to the issues of money laundering and corruption. And as we have debated exhaustively earlier today, this resolution is in line with the direction towards greater transparency and accountability and compliance with international obligations. The proposed resolution seeks to amend the schedule of the Proceeds of Crime Act 143, which now provides only for drugs and terrorism offenses to fall within its provisions. This amendment will now widen the scope of offenses that would fall under that principal act. I now ask that this resolution be passed.
I recognize Senator Bragdon.
Sir, I have no intention of delaying the government doing its business, but you're calling upon me to approve an amendment to an order that the minister made. The first time I've seen an order in my life, the gentleman was calling out the clerk to show me it. I have not seen it yet. You know, that is unfair. You're asking me to approve an order that I've never seen. You know? This rush job thing that we are doing has to stop. I can't speak to it. I know what it's all about. I'm not looking at it for the first time. I just saw it 10 seconds before I stood up.
I beg that the resolution be read a second time.
You have to protect me and all other members from this. It cannot happen like this. I am complaining that the order has not been shown. I don't know who else on this side have seen it, but I certainly only saw it just now after it was called. I don't know the contents of the order. I don't know what the effect of the order is. You cannot pass it above my head. The government cannot abuse the minority like this all the time. This thing is totally out of order. I have never seen it before. It was not circulated. If it was circulated, it didn't come to me. Cannot pass it today like this. I am very sorry, but it's unfair. They don't know what it is.
This is an order that has to be done by affirmative resolution. Also approve the resolution on the 9th. My information is circulated. So this is almost a month that it would have been on this resolution would have been on the site.
These are passed by affirmative resolution of 4 votes.
He had a copy before. What is he saying in the Thursday?
Order.
But this is it. You made it this morning?
Which one is for?
That's why we.
I have been advised by both the clerk and of Parliament and the deputy clerk that this matter before us, which needs the affirmative consent, this resolution of both houses, House of Assembly and the Senate, really was debated and passed the Senate since the 9th of April. It was thereafter on the website. And the fact that you were unaware of it might be no fault of the leader of government's business or anybody other than yourself.
Sir, I think you have been misled, sir. What you are talking about is the resolution to give effect to the order. The actual order was not circulated.
Yes, but
Nobody has seen the order before. You can quiz anybody on the other side. They have not seen the order.
But the order directly relates to the resolution. It is one of those matters that need the affirmative consent of the House and the Senate. And it was in the public domain.
No, sir, it was not.
Since the 9th of April, the 10th.
Sir, with all due respect, we have a resolution to approve this order. The order was never circulated. The first time this order, anybody is saying this order is today. It was laid in the House, in the Senate today. But the order was never shown to us. I am seeing the order now for the first time. And ask any other honorable member in here if they had seen this order before. The answer would be no. We had only seen a resolution to approve the order, but we were never shown the order. I have the order in my hand now, sir. The resolution was sent. I don't know. I ain't read it yet. I ain't read it. I'm not reading it. It says, but leading paragraph Y and Z and substitute the following. I don't know what Y and Z says. I go look at it before I go delete something. No, I am not delaying it. I don't know what it says. You ask me to delete something and then I don't know what the something is.
Senator Franklin, I have the order before me. We are asking to give approval. The order is really 2 paragraphs. And it relates to a matter that was debated in the lower house since the 9th of April. And it's a 2-paragraph order.
Sir, I understand what you're saying. It says the first part 1 of the schedule of the Proceeds of Crime Act, Cap 143, is amended by deleting paragraphs Y and Z and substituting the following. I do not know, sir, don't say this for the first time. I do not know what Y and Z is. I can agree to delete them and put something else in place because I have to have the context where I am coming from. I don't know what this is doing. I might be selling my house. You have to give me the time to look and see what I am deleting and what I am putting in.
I hear your voice in opposition. Unless I hear other voices, I'm inclined to proceed with this matter. The Senate was not meeting. This is our first meeting for about a month, but the House of Assembly met 3 times since we were on recess. And those of us, I take to be all of us, follow what goes on below, knowing that what goes on below will come up above. So if I have,
Mr. President, I believe that it is normal practice and, that we come to this House ready to debate and sometimes even at short notice what may come to us from the other place. The reality is, sir, that we are in an environment where we want to move swiftly and correctly. And unless Senator Franklin has some fundamental issue, then, sir, I think that it is appropriate for us to proceed.
Sir, I have a fundamental issue. And the fundamental issue is you cannot bring something to me today and ask and tell me I'm going to pass a resolution to give effect to an order that I have never seen, that was never circulated, and Senator Grant can tell you, has he ever seen this order before? The answer to that will be no. He has not seen it. You have not seen it. If you have seen it before, I will sit and let you say that you've seen it. He has not seen it. None of you have seen it before. It is unfair. I don't know what it means. You delete paragraphs Y and Z and substitute the following. What is paragraph Y and what is paragraph Z? What am I? I don't know. This is an order made by the minister.
Senator Cummings, did I see your hand?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise under duress. I have to say, I rise under duress, Mr. President. Mr. President, we cannot continue in this way. Mr. President, we have a responsibility. I think my colleague, Senator Grant, has said it quite ably. Senator Franklin, on more than one occasion, and perhaps at times there may be some merit to his objection, we receive items at late notice, and we have to sometimes spend the night going through the documentation, reading to make sure we come up to speed. And we hear those objections, and on those occasions, Mr. President, you're always very good at apologizing for the delay and providing an explanation for why that has happened. But, Mr. President, I am challenged by the idea that since the 9th of April, Mr. President, we would wish the public of Barbados to believe that it is someone else's responsibility but ours to follow the proceedings using technology.
A point of order, Mr. Chairman.
What is the point of order?
The point of order is that Senator Cummings is misleading the House. What she is saying is not accurate. This order has never been shown to anybody. It was not on any website. It wasn't shown to anybody. Only the resolution was on the website. It said that there is a resolution to approve an order. We have not seen the resolution. We've only seen a resolution. We have not seen the order.
You've said that before.
But Senator Cummings has gone there and tried to make me look like I'm telling lies. I do not lie. No, but what she is saying is that no. But we on the website, no, it was not on any website. It was not circulated. It was not given to anybody.
Please continue, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I was saying, Mr. President, since the 9th of April, we have had the documentation with regard to the resolutions which have been laid in the other place. We have seen since the 13th of May, all of the resolutions. There are about 15 items of legislation which we have seen, and there have been on, not just on the Parliament's website as bills before the House, resolutions before the House, bills before the Senate, resolutions before the Senate. They are all there, Mr. President. And so it is, I find the discussion that we're having here, Mr. President, disingenuous. In particular, since this relates to an item of legislation that we passed months ago, and if any of us were to take the time to correspond the 2 sentences in this order to the legislation that we passed, this is an unnecessary debate, Mr. President. I am of the view that we need to move forward. Thank you.
He can't suspend, just say that.
Remove a suspension for 10 minutes.
Mr. President, I beg to move that
Senate.
I beg to move that the House now suspend
Senate,
for
sorry.
10 minutes. The Senate now suspend for 10 minutes to consider this matter favorable.
Question is that our proceedings be now suspended for 10 minutes. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it, and we will now be in suspension
4.
until 10 past 4.
start.
Where the clerks are at the table.
Because as we're telling you, they're going to get,
Yeah, well, yeah.
they're going to get more.
Shut the door.
For the fund.
Like we just checking
Yeah.
something connection.
Oh, you're not really quite ready yet?
If you're ready to hear.
Is there any problem with proceeding? Casual say you have a problem.
No.
Oh, you can- call on him. Suspended.
We're now back in session. And now I'm to advise that we've all benefited from the suspension. I was able to have a discussion with the clerk and with Senator Franklin because he was absolutely right that he did not see it. It's not among the papers circulated. So perhaps he might just wish to state Senator Franklin's position now in relation to the order which needs affirmative approval both of the House, which it has already had, and of the Senate. Senator Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I benefited from the recess, and I was shown the information that we want to pass, and I, sir, would certainly not want to delay the government.
And
I just wanted to know.
You may add as to why it was not circulated earlier.
It was, yeah, the explanation was given, sir, and I do not want to delay the government in this effort. I just wanted to find out what we were doing.
Yes.
And I'm happy that the recess that we had for a few minutes ago, I was able then to be put in a position of knowledge in this space. So I thank you, sir.
Want to move down? That it be approved.
President, I now beg that this resolution now pass.
The question is that the resolution before us will now pass. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. Resolution has been passed. say that.
Yeah, but where is
And the approval, of the, I will say that, and the approval of the Senate secured. The resolution is now being passed and the approval of the Senate has been secured. Next item, please.
Mr. President, I'd like to recommit to motions relating to the business or sitting of the Senate and moved by the minister.
you want to recommit an item? Motions, we all think it's
So we can get
We now wish to resort to the question of the suspension of the relevant standing orders for the purpose, for the balance of today's proceedings. Earlier, we suspended standing order 45. We now wish to suspend another standing order, and the leader of our business will so indicate.
Mr. President, I'll now ask for the suspension of Standing Order 22-1, which stipulates that that a notice shall not be placed upon the business paper or any sit-in earlier than 1 day following the day upon which the notice was given to the clerk. And given that the item that we are proposing to place on the order paper, which is the Public Service Retrenchment Workers Bill 2019, only passed in the other place last night. I am asking for suspension of this so that we can move with urgency to address the matter.
So the question is that
you have a fire? You have a fire?
the question is that standing order 22-1 be suspended for the balance of the day's sitting for a reason earlier indicated, so that we can deal with the matter of which we've recently been given notice, and so that the public workers involved can get their financial benefits from as early as later this week. The question is that standing order 22-1 be suspended for the balance of today's sitting. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. Standing order 22-1 is now suspended. Proceed.
Yeah. Major work on here.
I saw that Walker was going to review that regime.
Mr. President, in the record that we will, next item on the order paper will order number 13 on the supplementary order paper. Standing in the name of the honorary leader of the Senate to move the second reading of the Public Service Retrenched Workers Bill 2019.
Mr. President, I rise to introduce the Public Service Retrenched Workers Bill 2019, which, as I would have notified earlier, just passed in the other place last night, but notwithstanding the fact that this bill has now very quickly reached this Honourable House, I am sure that the nature of this bill could garner the support of honourable members here. This bill, the intention is for the government of Barbados to be able to pay persons who were eligible for pensions, that's 10 years and above, who were retrenched from government in October of 2018 during that restructuring process, that we be able to pay them their gratuity at this point in time, as a decision that was made in October 2018 effectively said that these workers would go home with their gratuity, and then they will be able to get a pension, the reduced pension, when they reach the pensionable age. It was discovered that while the Pensions Act might permit certain types of payments early, in the case of retrenchment, that reason could not be used to be able to pay them in the way that it was intended. This bill now, what happened then is that persons who had in less than 10 years of service to government at that time would have been eligible to go home with their unemployment payments and their outstanding vacation, along with a gratuity, or an ex gratia, I should say. However, persons who were 10 years and above did not get that privilege. They were eligible only to get whatever was their outstanding vacation and whatever would have been their employment eligibility. And so this bill seeks to bring and put money in their hands as soon as possible by making it possible for those persons who had in 10 years or more of service, particularly as it related to the 84 workers from the MTWN, the Ministry of Transport, Works and Maintenance. They will now, should this bill be passed, be able to get their gratuity at 25% of what is their pensionable earning immediately, or as soon as government is able to pay them from the consolidated fund, and then the reduced pension, which will be the remainder 75%, would be payable to them when they reach the pensionable age. I believe there's not much more at this point I would like to say. I'm sure that there are honorable senators around this table who would wish to speak to this. And so I beg. The name of the bill is the Public Service Retrenched Workers Bill 2019. And now beg that this bill be read a second time.
The question is that the bill under consideration, the Public Service Retrenchment Workers Bill 2019, be now read a second time. I recognize Senator Franklin.
Thank you, sir. This is an example, this bill, sir, is an example of government being given some very bad advice and being misled by people who have not read the pension legislation and seek to advise government. Yes. Sir, if you wanted to pay people their some money now, it could have been achieved by the current legislation, the legislation that is already in place. but too many people. I'm referring to the Pensions Act, Section 8A of the Pensions Act, if I have it here with me. 8 capital A, where the temporary employment of a person is terminated after not less than 2 years of service, the minister may, in any case he considers appropriate, authorize the payment of compensation to that person. And subsection 2 says compensation under subsection 1 is payable out of monies voted for the purpose by Parliament. So if we weren't taking advice from people who didn't know, you could have paid those people. But the reason why they're not paying them because they think that they were vested with their pensions after 10 years service. Now let's go back to 1998 when the Barbados Labour Party administration under Owen Arthur introduced legislation where temporary officers in the public service would become pensionable. Because prior to 1998, if you were not appointed in the public service, you left without a pension. Mr. Arthur thought that was wrong, and your predecessors who were thinking at the time passed an amendment to the Pensions Act. It is Section 2A, 2 capital A. It says this act applies with the necessary modifications to a person who holds an office that is not established under Section 2 of the Civil Establishments Act and who is employed on a full-time basis, and B, is not employed on a contractual basis as it applies to an officer who holds an office established under that act. All that is saying is temporary officers would now become pensionable. And you become pensionable in a lot of ways in the public service. But the one that applies to these people is Section 8.1 of the Pensions Act, and 8.1 paragraph D to be exact. It says you become pensionable on the reorganization of his office for any purpose. The actual section, it determines when you become pensionable. It says on or after attaining the age of 55, now 60, now, and later on 67. And it says C, and I'm going to read C, it says on the abolition of his office. It doesn't say on the abolition of his office at age 60 or as anything, you know. It says on the abolition of his office. So if your office was abolished, anytime after you acquired your 10-year service, you got your pension immediately. That is what the law was all along until the misinterpretation by the Court of Appeal in Barbados in the Winton Campbell case. And rather than fix the misinterpretation, both Labour Party administrations that we had exploited it against the workers. It says also on becoming unfit, there's another one, and on medical evidence to the satisfaction of the Governor General that he's incapable of work. Now, if you were 50 years old and you became ill and could not work, you got your pension. It didn't say at 60. If for some other reason you get bewitched and can't work and then you get horny, turn foolish or something like that, there's also provision in here where you can also get your pension early. May I feel for a fellow, you're going foolish, you walk him home in a bare chair and wouldn't come work. You can send him home and give him his pension before he reaches 60. The problem here is where the mistake came. The mistake came in 1975 when, again, another forward-thinking Barbadian who made provision for people who had 10 years service in the public service. And that person I'm talking about is the Right Excellent Earl Barra when he was Prime Minister. As a matter of fact, on July the 22nd, 1975. You can read the debate at pages 5253 and 5254 of Hansard. Mr. Barrow, as he then was, he said that it was basically that it was unfair that a public officer who did not reach retirement age, no matter how long he worked, if you did not work until retirement age or get special permission to retire at 50, you didn't get a pension. He used the example, he said, if a person joined the public service at the age of 18, and this is in Hansard, and he go on until he reached the age of 49, he would have served 31 years. But because of the legislation as it stood then, he would not qualify for a pension. He would lose all of his pension. So in 1975, he put a provision in the law that says if you have acquired pensionable service and you leave the public service, go work someplace else or whatever, go to Canada, go wherever you want to go, your pension will be stored for you. Now this administration is interpreting your leaving the public service on your own volition as they're kicking you out. They are not leaving, you're firing them. And if you fire them, you should pay them. And the payment according to the Pensions Act is your, if you have 10 years or more, is your gratuity and pension. It doesn't mean that you will get your gratuity and pension until you reach, from whatever age it is, because I know of one case with these MTW people, a guy who started to work at age 18, he is now 28. So you wouldn't expect to pay him from 28 until he reached 67 a pension when he could go and work. But the law as it stands now, and it still stands, not back then, but as it still stands. As a matter of fact, it passed in 1985. The act is number 1985, number 18. It says that if you are in receipt of your pension and you have not yet reached retirement age, the government can call upon you to take a job. That's subsection 1. Subsection 2 then says, if you refuse to take the job, your pension can be suspended until you reach 60, retirement age. Now that would be foolishness. If you can't reach the pension, get the pension until you're 60, how can it be suspended until you reach 60? So this amendment to the Pensions Act in 1975 clearly did not mean that everybody who goes home will have to wait until 60. Because there are several categories that do not wait. If you are ill, if you are turning bewitched, they didn't call it that in the legislation. Yeah, but it might be mental, you know? Because it says that if you are, the legislation says that if you don't have to have any specific medical condition, but you can be retired if you become unfit, in the opinion of the Governor General, for the discharge of your duties, though not suffering from any particular illness or infirmity likely to be permanent. So, you know, if a fellow get depressed or something, stays home, you don't put on you don't put on the pants, you just walk about the house and thing, you don't want him to come to work. A fellow like that, he could benefit under these provisions. He does not have to wait until he's 60. A guy who got ill and he cannot work, he too can work, could get a benefit under this thing. He doesn't have to wait to 60. Or people who the government sent home before they reach retirement age, and you must remember that those public officers were not entitled to severance pay. They were not entitled to unemployment benefits. So their severance pay and unemployment benefits was already taken care of for them in the pension legislation. So that is why there was never any provision for them under the national insurance law, because they were already taken care of. Now, they're already taken care of, so you didn't put any provision for them in the national insurance arena, or you didn't make any provision for severance payments. But then all of a sudden, you send them home and they're saying, oh, there's no provision for you. There is already provision for you. But it is that the people who are advising the government don't read. And if they do read, they don't understand. And they have suffered these people tremendously by not picking up the legislation and reading it for themselves. It is not I don't even blame the government, for the misinterpretation. I blame them for being unfair and uncaring to people that send home, because you can't send home a fellow and tell you, well, I ain't giving you nothing after working 10, 20 years in the public service because you were not appointed. That the Barbados Labour Party administration under Owen Arthur fixed that. So whether you're appointed or not, you're entitled to your pension. That is something that I applaud Owen Arthur for. And I said, if there's one thing that I will remember him for, is that. Because you had situations in Barbados where people who were not appointed and they're on their deathbed, and you had to hold a letter in front of them and put the pen in their hand and to scribble so that they could get they could retire, or somebody go and get them appointed just before they die, so that the family could get something. Because prior to 1998, you got nothing if you were not appointed. Government fixed that. And the same, and the Barbados Labour Party administration that fixed it is now turning around and taking advantage of the people that they helped back in 1998. It is unfair. But sir, that brings me to something that is closely related, but not necessarily speaking to this resolution, but it's closely related. Over the last couple of months, government, because the IMF is making a lot of dictates to them, that they have to reduce the pension bill, they have to reduce the salaries bill, and some overzealous people have taken upon themselves to cut people's pension that they're receiving from the Treasury by the amount that they get from national insurance. That is a provision that was also inserted in the pension law in 1975. In this same act, 1975, number 31. Persons, sir, if you are employed, your pension conditions are the ones that you find when you get into the service. They can't change them on you down the road. So when you came in, and you were in there prior to the change of this legislation, you retain your rights. And your rights was to the pension from the Treasury and also the pension from national insurance. The law then was changed to say if you come in after the 1st of September 1975, your pension will be abated by the amount you get from national insurance. And they were talking about your old age contributory pension. It had absolutely nothing to do with your disablement benefit or your invalidity benefit that you got from national insurance. The disablement benefit comes when you are injured on the job and you have more than 30% disability. You get a payment until you get better. That you get injury benefit for 52 weeks. And after that 52 weeks, and you are still unable to work as a result of that injury, you go on to what they call a disablement benefit. That is not necessarily for life. Because it can be reviewed by the Director of National Insurance. The Director of National Insurance can say, well, this fellow looks good and sprightly, I don't think he should be getting the pension, and they send you back to a doctor, and the doctor will assess you and say, well, he ain't disabled anymore, he's going back to work. But what is happening now, if the Director of National Insurance ever does that, and they already cut your pension at the Treasury, what will you do? It was never intended to cut disability benefit or invalidity benefit. The invalidity benefit is when you were sick, not injured on the job. If you are sick, national insurance pays you for a year, actually 312 days is a year in national insurance because they don't count Sundays. So if you are being paid for a year sickness benefits and you are still not able to go to work, mind you, you're sick, not injured, you can then go on to an invalidity benefit. That invalidity benefit is there until you reach pensionable age or you get better. If you get better, the director can stop the pension and let you go and do what you got to do. So, but what is happening in the Treasury now? They are calling the disability benefit and the invalidity benefit a pension, and saying because of the 1975 arrangements where if you draw your old age pension at 65 or 60, that it will be reduced by the amount you get from national insurance. That was never the case. It is not a pension. It is a national insurance benefit that you were getting. And what it entails, it is not a pension, because it goes on in the regulations to tell you that if you are in receipt of the pension, the disability or the invalidity benefit, it is converted to a pension when you reach pension age. How can you convert a pension to a pension? That's the problem, you know. It is already, you are given a benefit. This benefit will pay you until you get better or till you reach pension age, and then you will get your pension. But it is converted to a pension at retirement age. Now, according to the interpretation of the Accountant General and whoever else, you're already in receipt of their pension. So they're going to convert your pension to a pension. It doesn't make sense. You are in receipt of a national insurance benefit. I have people calling me, one in particular, who said to me, he's a policeman, he was injured, he's very ill. The money that he gets from the Treasury, he pays his mortgage. And the benefit from national insurance provides for light bill, water bill, food. And because of this misinterpretation that the Accountant General is applying to invalidity benefits and disablement benefit, he will now suffer the loss of his pension from the Treasury that pays his mortgage. So we are putting people at a serious disadvantage by incompetent public servants who don't read and understand English. That's the problem. Sir? That is the problem. And unfortunately, a government looking to save money, when they see this thing come before them, they just sign off on it without understanding the damage that they are doing to people. They are not in receipt of their pension yet. The national insurance disability benefit and the national insurance invalidity benefit are just that. They are more, what you can call it, extended sick benefits. That's what they really are, you know. Because you only receive sick benefits for 52 weeks. After that, you get invalidity. You only receive injury benefits for 52 weeks. After that, you become disabled. But people have gotten better and gone back to work. But if you have not gotten better and you reach retirement age, they're converted to a pension. And it is at that point, if you were employed after the 1st of September 1975, that is when the abatement will happen. That, sir, was also done in 1975, and I have a copy of it here. It says, insert immediately after Regulation 25, the following as Regulation 25A. Mind you, when the people were inserting it, they put it in the wrong place. Because there's no Regulation 25 in the pension regulations, you know. they put in that regulation 27. And so that caused me to do some research. So I said that I went back for the original act that was passed. I didn't read the amendments that the Law Revision Commissioners and they put in. I read the original legislation, and the original legislation was or wrongly inserted in the legislation, and it has given rise to a lot of foolishness. So I said all of that to point out that government should stop this nonsense. That these are the people that voted for you, because 90% of the persons voted for anyhow in the last election. And now when you have the opportunity, I don't hear sides. Now that you have the opportunity to take care of them, you're not. You only need them for election purposes. These are, if you let them then know, then vote next time, You're going to take care of them all the time. And I hope I have given enough background to show where, one, there was no need for this piece of legislation now, because the minister already had power to do that. And that was usually interpreted to mean that if you had less than 9 years service, that the minister would have given you a pension. That's how it was interpreted. It does not what it says, but that is how it was misinterpreted. But if you have 10 years service, you fall under the legislation that says since 1998, thanks to Owen Arthur, since 1998, you become pensionable. And at that point, if they send you home before you reach retirement age, they pay you your pension and gratuity. What you are proposing now is to give a person his gratuity and let him wait until he reaches retirement age to get his pension. Not going to happen. I can tell you why. There is no pension for that fella at 60, because when he reaches retirement age, the national insurance pension will abate the amount you get from the treasury. So don't put people on false hope. There's no more money coming for them. And also, what is more important, gratuity is part of your pension. It is not a magical thing, their gratuity won't be a pension next. Your gratuity is 1/4 of your annual pension by 12 and a half. The reason for that is, when they did the actuarial study back in the 1940s or whatever it was, 1947, they determined that civil servants usually live 12 and a half years after retirement. That's when retirement was 55, so that would be 67. So they decided, well, they will give you a lump sum, 12 and a half times, and you take out 1/4 of your pension, your full pension. And they give it to you in a lump sum for 12 years. Now, if you live more than 12 years, you lose. If you're dead early, you win. But you have to be awarded your pension first. You have to be awarded your pension first. A gratuity cannot be awarded by itself. You have to be awarded your pension, and when your pension is awarded, then you can take it, because you can say to the government, I don't want a gratuity, I want a full pension. And people should not be mistaken, a full pension is not 33 and a third years. 33 and a third years is the maximum time that you will be paid for. 33 and a third years is 400 months. And that so the pension formula gives you 400 months over 600 times your annual salary. 400 over 600 is 2/3. So it is 2/3 of your pensionable salary. That is your full pension. You can opt for a reduced pension and a gratuity, or you can opt for, or you can just say, no, thank you, I don't want a gratuity. But I always tell people, take the gratuity because you don't know how long you can live. So don't think that you can live to 90 and say, well, I can lose out because down the road my pension can still be reduced all those years. I tell you, bargain on the fact that you might go along at 62. And so you would have gotten money ahead that you wouldn't have actually gotten had you stayed on and get a full pension going on and on and on and on. Unfortunately, sir, these things are misunderstood by most people who come into the public service, don't understand the public service, but they have responsibilities for the public service. I'll give you an example to show the ludicrous behavior and stupidness that happens in the public service. Right now, I understand that the post of Chief Personnel Officer is frozen. And there's now something called a Director General. Lord have mercy. In order to get rid of the post of Chief Personnel Officer, if you look at the legislation, in the general orders, which is now made under the Public Service Act, the Public Service Regulations, and the Public Service Act, it speaks to functions that the Chief Personnel Officer must perform. Now, if you don't have a Chief Personnel Officer, who will perform them? But the Prime Minister has taken advice from some people who like titles to get rid of the mundane sounding Chief Personnel Officer and get a post called Director General. It's nonsense. Because right now, there are functions being performed by somebody that the law does not give them the power to perform. Because of that bad advice that the Prime Minister acted on. You know? People, you know, like big titles, you know. So you're calling them Director General and all kind of Director this, Director that. They don't make sense. And if you're going to create posts, according to Section 13 of the Public Service Act, you must come here and the place below. Because all orders made by the minister under the Public Service Act, under Section 13, except an order for the qualifications, are subject to affirmative resolution. Section 13 of the Act, 13.1, provides for, I have them here, don't write 13.1. The minister may, by order, A, establish offices in the public service, B, determine the number of persons who may be appointed to those offices, C, prescribe the qualifications to be possessed by persons appointed to those offices, and D, determine the emoluments to be attached to those offices. Those are the orders that the Prime Minister can make under Section 13. But it goes on at subsection 3 to say, subject to subsection 4, an order made under subsection 1 shall be subject to affirmative resolution, meaning that when the minister makes an order, it has to come here and in the other place, and we have to agree. But it says subject to subsection 4. Subsection 4 says subsection 3 shall not apply to any order that relates to the qualifications required in respect of offices in the public service. So out of all those things that I detailed, the only order that must not come here is the change in qualifications. I didn't see any Director General or any of those fancy posts that these people misled the Prime Minister to calling them. So this is what we're having in the public service. People who don't read and understand. This thing is written in Greek. It's written in English. And the basic problem that we have is English comprehension. No matter, I tell my children, when they're growing up, when they come and tell me they don't like this subject, don't like that subject, I say, listen to me, that's nonsense. When you're doing a subject in school, unless it is a foreign language, it is English comprehension. If it's scripture, you've got to read and understand. That's English comprehension. Geography, same thing. Read and understand it. We have a lot of people who do not read and understand, and then they seek to advise the ministers and give them some very bad advice. I am not even saying that they are doing it deliberately, because that would be an offense under paragraph C of the Code of Conduct and Ethics, 5C. Because if you mislead a minister, you lie to a minister or the parliament or whatever, that is an offense for which you can be dismissed from the public service. But some of these people lie to you. I don't know. I don't think that is the situation here. The situation here is incompetence or failing to read and understand. In this case, that might be incompetence too. But we are now seeking to put in place legislation to fix a problem that does not exist. All the problem that existed was people who came into the public service, and because they have certain qualifications, they got promoted to the top. But they didn't come through the ranks and read the general orders and learn from reading the old files and stuff to understand what must be done. I went to a training session at the fire service some months ago. And one of these same directors that they have now was giving a lecture to the fire officers. And she was saying to them, oh, they're going to change, they're going to have to insert qualifications in the qualification order to cover the firemen, because there's no qualification in the qualification order for firemen. And she was expounding, and she sounded real pretty, you know. And my stomach boiling, because, sir, she was absolutely wrong, but she was teaching. I was waiting for my turn, for my session to start, but everything was half hour late, so I was there groaning and enjoying her half hour into my time of her nonsense. And I said, excuse me, with all due respect, I can't sit down here any longer and listen to you. You're misleading these people. What you're saying is nonsense. The qualifications for the fire officers are not in the Public Service Qualification Order because they're already in the Fire Service Act. And if they're in the Fire Service Act, you don't need to put them in the qualification order because the Act takes precedence of any order. And she quickly left. The problem is, they were teaching. She was teaching, but did not have a clue what she was teaching about. And that is what we're having here now. Same thing goes for the police at a certain level, and firemen, police, and prison officers. They were already on the legislation, contained in their legislation. And people go and fix things that didn't want fixing and messing up the public service because we have people who came in at the top without passing through the ranks and understanding what happened, because you have your, I don't have a problem with people with qualifications. I have a problem with the people, when you go, once you've got the job, now go in there and find out what to do. Because I don't care what qualification you have. You still got to learn the job when you get there. And they don't want the advice from the people who were there long. Same thing with, like, another example is Customs Department. You have officers in the Customs Department who know customs law like anything else, customs rules, everything. But you know, the qualification or to reach certain level in the custom is an LLB. You don't want an LLB because no customs officer by law is authorized to interpret statute. If a customs officer has a problem with a statute, he has to refer to the Solicitor General. So why insist that he must have an LLB but he can't use it? But you want to know why? Why they put that in there? Who they wanted to appoint had one. So they changed the order so that the person that they wanted to get the job can have it. So people now who have customs training didn't get the job because they didn't have the LLB and they didn't have all these accounting stuff. Thankfully, and they can say my belly getting rubbed, so let me right now. Thankfully, the Prime Minister was able to see past that, and she said, well, these people were not promoted because they didn't have the customs course, but they didn't put on the customs course. Your only qualifications was a customs course that you must have in order to go on to the higher level. But you couldn't go on the higher level because nobody in Barbados put on the customs course. The same thing happened at immigration, because you had to go through some sort of training as an immigration officer. I went through that training. And you see, that's the problem with you. You just want to put your foot in your mouth, you know. Those computers that you have at immigration department, those little booths, the officers work faster than them. Don't I tell you? No. The officers now are faster than the machines that you put in. They time them. And they put the slowest officer against the machine, and the machine beat the officer beat the machine all the time. But when they come in here and pass it off, invest a lot of money. You don't want that. And then you're going to bring more too. I don't know who what nonsense they're doing. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was going good, but she interrupted me with that, so I had to give her the sir. So but I thank you for steering me back to my course. My problem, sir, is simple. Government needs to take advice when people know what they're talking about. I will, anytime at all the government have a public service problem, they don't have to pay me. I will tell you where to go. I ain't got a problem with it. I'm not looking for money. You know? So I'm not even promoting myself. I'm just saying, Kadir, you want help, I will help you. Yeah? You know, if you want help, I will help you. You don't got to pay me. Some of us, but they're doing it wrong. And they're hurting too many people are getting hurt. Yeah, I saw this woman on, somebody send these WhatsApp things to me. I don't know why my son put me on this WhatsApp thing. Because I get all these things. And I saw a woman who was in obvious pain, complained that she worked at MTW and she ain't getting money and all things going haywire for her. Shouldn't have happened if people were reading the law. And my biggest problem now, and I can finish on this, is that it is a crying shame that a trade union would approach government and ask government to breach the law to benefit their workers. What they should be doing is to say to the government, you are in breach of the law. Pay these people. But I'm hearing them saying, oh, that's the best we could do for now. No, the best we could do for now, do the right thing. Don't look at Senator Moore, it is not her union. Okay, so stop pointing. It is not her union. She does not represent the majority of public officers who went and met this foolish deal. This is on the table because another union went and put the government something silly. And the government jumped on it because they were getting too much licks. No? What government should have done is to read the legislation. They could have paid them people says, as a matter of fact, they shouldn't send them home, or not, it would have to pay them the pension. No? But the government wasn't aware of that. Sir, I am troubled by the amount of goofs that this government is making. But these goofs somehow only ever happen to the people at the bottom, you know. These poor civil servants are suffering and because of a mistake that government is languishing in. They want to fix it now? Fix it for God's sake. But don't fix, but I'm paying people this money. But this legislation, sir, is totally unnecessary because there was already legislation in place to deal with these problems. With those few and half words, I am much obliged to you, sir.
I next recognize Senator Tony Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak to the bill before us, a bill entitled An Act to Authorize the Payment of Gratuity and Pension to 84 public officers who were employed in the Ministry of Transport Works and Maintenance and who were retrenched from the public service on 19th October 2018. First of all, it means that the bill before us is one that is very specific to a particular group of workers, specifically those 84 workers from the MTW who were retrenched back on 19th October. Before commenting further on what is before us, it is regret that we have to note that these workers were retrenched on the 19th of October, and today is the 15th of May, 7 months after retrenchment, and that we should be debating any consideration of compensation that is owed to these 84 workers. The Honourable Senate has heard that my union was not involved in the discussions surrounding this particular retrenchment in the public service. And I would not use the occasion to suggest that perhaps that's the reason it has taken this long, because in dealing with instances of retrenchment, one has to be mindful that one incident, a single incident of retrenchment is one too many, a point that we have heard countless times. And the reason for that as well, Mr. President, is because of the pain that we've heard about, the dislocation, the uncertainty, the financial difficulties that lead to mental situations that inspire or trigger NCDs and so on, a number of other fallouts we have from what may appear as simple scenarios like this. No easy solutions when we are talking about retrenchment. Now, I agree that the legislation that is in place governing pensions at Cap 25, and there's similar legislation for the statutory boards, but we are not speaking about a statutory board in this case, but that will be Cap 3-4. The legislation makes provision for what is being contemplated. The unions and the Labor Department and everybody until the Winton Campbell case understood that the legislation already makes provision for that such provision that these workers could have been compensated at the point in time that they were retrenched. But the uncertainty came with the judgment in the Winton Campbell case. And Mr. President, it is distressing for me to be even speaking to this because yes, it's a CCJ judgment, but for the last 5 years, or for the 5 years rather in the period 2013-2018, as there was much discussion surrounding a transition of workers of customs into a Barbados Revenue Authority, one of the recurring responses that we got coming back from the Ministry of the Civil Service was that they were in an advanced process of preparing a paper that would be advanced to the Prime Minister, who had a responsibility for the Ministry of the Civil Service, that would work toward clarifying the confusion that existed with what everybody in labor understood the pieces of legislation to be saying and what that judgment did to turn everything topsy-turvy. What is distressing, therefore, is that we would have a situation now where governments have changed, or parties in government have changed, but where the people who were supposed to be very instrumental in advancing this paper and whatever had to be done to correct the problem, to correct the confusion, that these people are still in place. And that's why in another place, on another day, the 1st of this month, in another capacity, I had to be making a point that we have too many little Hitlers in positions not doing what they are supposed to be doing. And it's making bad for everybody. It's making certainly bad for unions in a situation where we function within a social partnership, where a social partnership by its very nature implies some measure of shared responsibility. When we get in meetings and we discuss retrenchment, we don't discuss that what is before us now should be the case, that 7 months after, workers who should be entitled to compensation should not have gotten it, and we should be deciding now whether they should get full compensation or part compensation, and in this case too, part compensation, because the pension aspect is supposed to be part until they reach pensionable age. This is frustrating, and that is why the leader of opposition business in the Senate, of the opposition in the Senate, that's why maybe he may have spoken so passionately about changing titles without changing the functionaries. A serious problem we have, because every time that we have encountered areas of difficulty, it isn't that the decisions that were being taken in themselves are problematic, but it is that the people executing these decisions are not executing in a manner that would not create the kind of confusion that is before us today. So I am not going to be long. I don't see the need for me to be very expansive. I want the 84 workers to get something. I believe that they are entitled to the whole hog. But at least step one, because we have the Winton Campbell, the CCJ decision that has created a problem, I believe that the effort that was taken in pursuing this, if effort had been taken in advancing the paper that was already so advanced for the last 5 years, I believe that we could have been discussing a different position. It is not the fault of anybody in this honorable chamber that we have to be discussing what has been put before us. So I would therefore be supportive of having the workers be paid their gratuity, especially in circumstances where those workers and their union, it is my understanding, not my certain knowledge, it is my understanding that those workers and their union have determined that this is what they want right now. And I would go a step further in suggesting that we don't stop there, but that this government that has demonstrated to all of us, not only in this house, but in the country, that it has the capacity to expedite issues, that the government now moves with haste to review what I have mentioned. It was the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Civil Service and the chief personnel officer, that in those meetings on the transition of customs into a Barbados Revenue Authority, that they were indicating to the meetings in the presence of the Minister of Finance, and in some cases the then Prime Minister, that they were in a very advanced stage of correcting this problem. So I'm now impressing on this government not to stop here by the payment of gratuities, but to go the step further and ensure that that paper, whatever system it is that has to be advanced, that it is completed so that we can bring resolution to this very vexing issue, because it has implications not only for these 84, but for so many others covered on the CAP 25 and CAP 384. And the process of retrenchment is not over. And if we don't want to find ourselves in a recurring position, it behooves everybody that this issue be settled. So I just want to settle in support of this, not because I agree with it, not because I don't believe that there was provision elsewhere for it, But because that issue is in contention, and we want to move very swiftly to ensure that at least the workers get what they believe they can right now, that we support the payment of the gratuity to the 84 public officers, former public officers of the Ministry of Transport and Works. That would be my submission. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Miller, I'm happy to recognize you, sir.
Mr. President, I am grateful for this opportunity to speak after Senator Franklin and Senator Moore, who are experts, have spoken. And I want to use the opportunity to say that anything that government does to ease the pain of people who are suffering because they have not received the money is welcome. But I want to raise the matter of gratuities and how, as Senator Franklin said, maybe the rules are misinterpreted. And sometimes one has to fight to have wrongs corrected. Now, contracted officers are paid gratuities in lieu of pension. And doctors who worked in government, the hospital, who are on contract, usually contracts up to 5 years, usually 3, but up to 5, are paid gratuities at a rate of 20% of your annual salary. And as one advances in the grades, one acquires certain allowances. So by the time one reaches S2, which is the highest grade you can reach as a senior consultant, you will have been entitled to an entertainment allowance. And we know that several years ago, allowances became taxable and became essentially part of your salary. And in calculation of gratuities, there was an amendment made, I believe, in 2011, where in the calculation of gratuities for public servants, the travel allowance, fixed travel allowance, and entertainment allowance were added to one's salary in the calculation of a gratuity. Now, within that amendment, there were no exemptions. And that's my interpretation as a non-lawyer. I did not see any exemptions. And there's been the persistent error, I would say, of calculating doctors' gratuities and even members of the executive at the QEH, and not including the 20% which should come from travel and entertainment allowances. And I believe this is wrong. And when it has been questioned, those in authority claim that it does not apply to contracted officers. And it appears as though those who are given that response are making their own rules. And Mr. President, if we are going to govern, we have to be fair. So we cannot have people sitting in offices who will make their own rules and enforce their own rules, and at the end of the day, cost government large sums of money. And I say this because there was a time when contracted officers were not being paid entertainment allowances. And yet, within all the rules, it said that when you reached a certain S grade, you were entitled to entertainment allowance. And contracted officers do have S grades as consultants. As a consequence, when the board of the QEH recognized that they were wrong, they corrected it, and it cost the hospital several $1 million to back pay all those who had been wronged over the years. And I am afraid that if we do not address this issue and have it clarified formally, we might well end up in the same situation. And when persons are wronged at work, they often fail to function, and productivity falls off. And when they feel they have no recourse, they walk away. And if you want to fix some of the problems that we're having, we have to treat people fairly. Mr. President, I thank you for the opportunity and oblige to you.
Senator Bragg?
Mr. President, I intend to be very brief. I do intend to be very brief in my remarks. I believe that it's very important that support be given to this bill that is before the Honourable the Senate. Sir, the reality is this, that the bill is making provision for payment to be made to a number of persons, a number of former public officers that have been disadvantaged. And the reality also is, sir, that advice has been given, and the advice, sir, is being acted on. Consultation has been undertaken with the relevant union, and government is proceeding to put in place the act to facilitate the payment to the public officers. Now, sir, I heard Senator Franklin speaking to many issues in relation to the public service and the fact that all of this could have been done within the context of the legislation that exists. That is Senator Franklin's position. I don't know that that is the actual position that exists. You know, when I hear Senator Franklin at times, I remember a guy who went to school with me at the law school. His nickname, sir, was No Demos. No Demos. Senator Franklin was in customs. He's a teacher. He's a trade unionist. He's an immigration officer. He was in the military. I mean, sir, every single, it seems as if, sir, every single debate that comes before this honorable chamber, and that every single subject matter that Senator Franklin, sir, and sir, that is quite possible. That is quite possible. So there, and sir, as you know, sir, as you quite rightly know, there are always different perspectives with respect to the same issue. Sir, look, there are times when there's a matter before the court of law, and one attorney holds a particular position and feels very confident in relation to what his arguments are, and another attorney holds another position. And Senator Franklin, yes, can come into this chamber and speak to us as if it is certain, but it is not necessarily certain because he has said it. What is certain, though, Mr. President, is that with the passing of this bill, it is certain, sir, that those persons who have been affected will now get some money. And sir, that is why I stand, because I support the amendment and support the fact that there is certainty and there is no longer speculation. Because what Senator Franklin has represented in his remarks, in my view, represents his position and speculation on his part, but does not necessarily represent what we know to be certain. The reality is, to Mr. President, that we accept that in this environment, and I was only planning to speak a few minutes, we accept, sir, that in this environment, there have to be, yes, some changes. We can't continue, Mr. President, to engage and to do things as we would have been in the past. And I think it is very positive and good that this government has signaled to the people of Barbados that we are prepared to take action where action is required, and that even when required to make difficult decisions, and sir, the retrenchment of workers is a very difficult decision. It is not something that the government wish to do, but Senator Franklin is very aware, and he speaks about it all the time, as to the reason why we are in the position that we are in, because of incompetence that existed for 10 years. But Senator Franklin, I would wish, sir, to say to him through you, that again, I would expect that as a trade unionist, wearing his trade unionist hat, that he would be extremely happy that the workers are now being able to carry home some money. And I would have thought, sir, that he would have been complimenting the government on the fact of the certain action that we are taking. Sir, there are issues in relation to the functioning of the public service. There are situations, sir, that at times I wonder, sir, if it is sabotage. And I'm not even sure, sir, that it is what I would term to be political sabotage. There are measures that have been put in place by the government of Barbados, and there seems to be deliberate frustration of those measures taking place by persons in positions of responsibility to act. And it seems at times, sir, that there are some public officers who take the view that they have to identify ways in which the system cannot work, as opposed to helping and facilitating the system to work. And sir, time is coming when I will have to speak to some issues in relation to tourism, and speak in relation to some matters where public officers are not facilitating the benefits that have been provided, even when ministers of government, in relation to acts. The Minister of Tourism, Mr. President, on with the Tourism Development Act and the Tourism Development Amendment Act. There was a situation, sir, where the minister wrote a letter on the minister's letterhead. And it went, sir, to the Customs Department. And one of my members reported that they were told, their officer was told, that it could not be accepted because the letter should have come on the letterhead of the Ministry of Tourism. When the Act speaks specifically to the Minister of Tourism, and what I'm saying, sir, is that we have to get to a point where there has to be that clear recognition by public officers that you are there to help to facilitate the process. We have to accept, sir, that these are different days and that all of us are accountable for the manner in which we function. And if we are not prepared to carry out the roles that we have to carry out in government, then make the decision to move on and to allow others who are willing, sir, to function in the capacity in which you are provided to function to do just that. Because this country, sir, cannot and must not be held to ransom. And I say this, sir, in closing, that this is not about any individual, but this is about our nation. This is about our future. And we have to ensure that all of us do our part and give our best to secure the future of this blessed nation, Barbados. I'm obliged to you, sir.
I think we're all right. I think we're secure. Where are we next?
You're gonna get two clocks.
Huh?
You're gonna get two more.
I see your clerks at the table. Yeah, but we could complete it.
You still go on committees and thing, you know.
Nobody else?
You just wrap up and we go on.
My concluding remarks on this.
Mr. President, in concluding this debate, again, I want to thank all honorable senators for their contribution. I heard from those persons who know quite a bit about labor relations, and it was really quite an engaging conversation. What I heard from Senator Franklin is that he would advise people to do exactly what this bill is suggesting we do, which is get the gratuity and allow themselves to receive their pension at the pensionable age. And so we thank you very much for that kind of support, Mr. Franklin. I also heard Senator Moore say that she recognized that there's a contentious issue from a court case, which seems to have caused some confusion, and she recognizes that in making this bill law, that we can, as Senator Grant would have said, create greater certainty that payment will be made in a very short period of time. And in fact, the urgency of bringing this to this Honorable House at this time was to seek to move with urgency so that government can do just that, which is put monies in the hands of those persons who, for whatever reasons, we admit things may not have been done perfectly, but now we are in a position to rectify some of these situations. And so, Mr. President, with those few words, I beg that this bill be now read a second time.
Aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
I beg to move that Your Honor now leave the chair and this Senate, this Honorable House resolve into Committee of the Whole to further consider this bill.
It is that I do now leave the chair, and the Senate resolve itself into a Committee of the Whole Senate for the further consideration of this measure in detail. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. The Senate is now in a Committee of the Whole Senate.
Senate is now in committee.
Clause 1.
I beg to move that clause 1 now stand part.
The question is that clause 1 stand part. Honourable senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
I beg to move that clause 2 stand part.
The question is that clause.
There is some confusion in clause 2. 2.2. The reduced pension due to the person referred to in subsection 1 shall be payable upon their attaining the age of 60 years in accordance with the provisions of the Pensions Act, Cap 25. Sir, there is no reduced pension payable to any of these 84 people when they reach any age at all. Further down, you will notice that this bill also says that this money again now is in full satisfaction of everything. So this needs to come out, because what it will do is to mislead people into believing that they're going to get something down the road. They're not going to get anything. And I said that during the debate when I wanted to make sure that we are careful with what we're saying, because they're not going to get anything. They will get their national insurance pension when they reach that age, when they reach retirement age. And because these were all people at the lower level in the public service, their pensions will be reduced by the amount they get from national insurance. The national insurance pension would be more than any pension they're going to get from the Treasury, so we'll wipe it out. So there's no pension for them down the road. So don't give people false hope. You see, we passed legislation here, we do not understand what we're doing wrong with this place, you know. Only a couple of days ago, a person called me, national insurance is not paying people who get sent home from the Barbados Tourism Product Authority, saying that they were appointed. We passed legislation in here on the 20th, and it was sent to by the government on the 24th of December, that says that these people are entitled to unemployment benefits. You know, they're entitled to national insurance because they're not paying them. But we have the legislation here, the National Insurance and Social Security Amendment number 2 Act of 2018, number 60. And we are, even these people are entitled and they're not paying them. You can pay people that are not entitled. So that needs to come out, sir.
I have to get a legal opinion. I don't have a legal opinion. I have to get a legal opinion at this point. Just go to AG. I have to get a legal opinion. Yes. PAG's in Miami, so we can see if they can get it.
This can't become the big issue. This can't become.
There's no lawyer here. So what he suggested.
So that we will say so again, get this money now. Why they can be paid because reduce pension.
This is the substitution. This means. This is substitution. So it might be this read it, it doesn't include that. This that too.
Senator McConney.
In light of the consultations that we had during the brief hiatus, I beg to delete sub-clause 2. At this time. Thank you.
Yeah, go on. Go on. And
He said no because it's consequential.
question is that subclause 2. Remember that we are on clause 2. But we are speaking about subclause 2. That clause, subclause 2, be deleted. There will be consequential changes as a result. The question, therefore, is that clause 2 as amended stand for. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 3.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to amend clause 3 by removing the 1 in the second line next to section 2.
The question is that clause 3 be amended by removing the 1 after section 2. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 4.
I beg to move that clause 4 stand part.
The question is that clause 4 stand part. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Beg to move that you report to His Honor the President the passing of 1 bill in committee with amendments.
The question is that I do now report His Honor the Speaker the passing of 1 bill in committee.
President.
His Honor the President the passing of 1 bill in committee. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chairman has reported to me the passage of the bill under consideration in committee.
I beg to move that this bill be now read a third time.
The question is that this bill under consideration be now read a third time. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
I beg to move that this bill now pass and be cited as the Public Service Retrenched Workers Act 2019.
Question is that this bill do now pass and be so cited. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The bill is now passed
It's
and
amended.
will be so cited. Thanks.
Order number 14, sir. In the name of the Honourable Leader of the Senate, to move the passing of a resolution to approve under Section 5 of the Land Acquisition Act, Chapter 228, the compulsory acquisition by the Crown of a parcel of land situate at Lower Bay Street in the parish of St. Michael in this island for the public purpose, namely tourism development.
Thank you, Mr. President. I
don't want to detain the Honourable Chamber too long, but I thought it was necessary that I should debate this resolution, as the Clerk of Parliament has indicated, seeking to compulsorily acquire a portion of land at Lower Bay Street, St. Michael's, for the public purpose of tourism development. And I'm sure honourable members would be aware that under the policies of the draft physical development plan for 2017 for Bridgetown, they include encouraging reinvestment along Bay Street and promoting, if I may quote, the redevelopment of key sites for tourism investment, including hotels, restaurants, attractions, and coastal open spaces, including the Pierhead, Needham's Point, and the Hink Street area. Mr. President, this area in Lower Bay Street is the property of Tiny Tops Limited and is presently occupied by a business known as the Liquidation Center. In pursuit of achieving this goal, notices in accordance with Section 3 of the Land Acquisition Act, Cap 228, were published in 3 editions of the daily newspaper and, of course, in the official gazette on the 11th, 14th, and 18th of March 2019. And also in accordance with the provisions of Section 4 of the Act, the Acting Governor General gave written authorization to the Chief Surveyor to fully proceed and complete any surveying works to facilitate the acquisition of this property. Mr. President, I'm not going to go into the details of the discussions that have been ongoing for quite a few months as regard the acquisition of this property. Suffice it to say that, as occurs from time to time in acquisitions, there is disagreement in terms of the valuation and the amount that there is usually disagreement often in these cases in terms of the valuation and in terms of the amount the government might be prepared to pay. In this situation, the government has made an offer in terms of the valuations of the Land Tax Department and has done further valuations and has made what the government considers to be a more than reasonable offer for the property. However, the owners are disputing it and are claiming that their property is worth much more. Of note and of interest would be that the owners had previously disputed the valuation of the Land Tax Department, claiming that they had valued it, it had been overvalued for tax purposes. Interestingly enough, at this point in time, and I'm not giving any figures, it is using the same values that they had an issue with. They're declaring now at the time of acquisition that it is undervalued. In these circumstances, government is proceeding. Government intends to use that for tourism purposes. I'm sure that the Honourable, my Senate colleague, would be delighted in terms of the utilization of this area, this beautiful area with accreted beaches, accreted beach, tremendous beach there, which has enhanced the value to the owners also, and yet they're still disputing it. That government will move ahead in terms of this acquisition and is seeking the agreement of this Honourable Chairman, certainly its approval, for us to proceed with this acquisition. With these few words, Mr. President, I beg to move that this resolution do not pass.
Question is that the resolution under consideration do now pass. All honourable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. President, this brings us to the ending of our proceedings today, and I beg to move that this session be now adjourned sine die.
Question is that this session of the Senate, we now adjourn without a date appointed. Sign it there. Honourable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. All honourable members not in favor, please say no. We think the ayes have it, and we are now adjourned. Sign it there. Without a day appointed. Okay.